The circus just appeared one day, perched in the parking lot behind the mall. Hand-painted signs cropped up overnight like gaudy weeds, displaying sneering clowns and roaring tigers. The largest circus on earth, one night only. The flyers covered the walls at school, were stuffed into every mailbox. I left tire streaks with a pile of them as Gaz and I raced to the beach. Wherever I looked, brightly coloured papers merged with the dead leaves swirling through the air, printed with a portrait of a cheerful-looking man wearing a goofy top hat. "Well, Sean, this might be your best shot," Gaz cackled as our bikes hit sand and we began to slow down. "How are your cartwheels?" I kicked some sand up at him, which only made him laugh harder. Gaz was always giggling about something. It was part of the reason we clicked so well. No one else could stand him. "Come on, imagine covering up that disaster on your head with a rainbow wig. The girls would just die," he shrieked. "Keep laughing," I told him. "I might just consider it." To be honest, I really was considering it. I had been planning, half seriously, on running away from home, and joining a circus didn't sound half bad. I was 16 at the time, bored to death by small-town living and aching to leave my parents in the dust. Did I have a plan? No. But I was fueled by Home Alone-style stories of kids making it in the city with a credit card and common sense. Plus, I could do a pretty good cartwheel. "Wow, half the school must be out here," Gaz observed, shaking me from my musings. I followed his gaze to the party happening near the water. He was right. Even in the fading light, there were a lot of faces I recognized. A few upperclassmen approached us when we got closer, hunched over like cartoon bodybuilders. "Are you two supposed to be here?" the bigger one asked. We glanced at each other. "You don't know us. That's Raygun," I gestured towards Gaz. "Club president. And this is Jazzwipe, vice club president," Gaz wheezed. "Lisa invited us." That's the other reason we clicked so well. Ever since we'd met, we'd been playing this game, coming up with the dumbest fake names we could think of whenever we met new people. Whoever's cover got blown first had to buy the other one a soda. Stupid, I know, but it had gotten me a lot of sodas too. The guys let us pass without comment, and we merged with the crowd of kids on the beach. I was surprised at how many of them were talking about the circus. Even the bro circle had supplemented their usual discussion about boobs they'd felt with talk of what kind of boobs the tightrope walker would have. You know, for balance purposes. It was very scientific. Gaz and I threw around a few more pseudonyms for fun, but most people were too drunk or preoccupied to call either of us out. Either time we saw the guys from earlier, we pretended to be looking for Lisa until they passed. I guess they were designated guards or something. At some point, I lost Gaz to the horde of swaying teens. In between songs, I could hear his stupid, shrieking laughter, which made me feel sorry for whoever he'd made his next victim. Abandoned, I peeled off a little and sat on a piece of driftwood looking over the water. It was really getting dark now, so much so that I didn't even notice the two girls that sat beside me until they spoke. "What's your name?" they said, in unison, scaring me half to death. Nickel Forward," I mumbled, looking helplessly between them. I noticed immediately that they were twins. Long strands of black hair framed identical pale faces. Too pale, like they were wearing face paint. My eyes fixated on the frilly tutus around their waist and the striped stockings that clung to their legs. "You guys go to Garfield High?" I asked. "Actually, my sister and I belong to the circus," said the one on the right. "We open tomorrow night," said the one on the left. "Oh, yeah, everyone's talking about it. We don't get a lot of excitement around here. Must suck getting stuck with promotion, right?" They looked at me strangely. Lefty spoke first. No, we wanted to come out here. We thought a party looked like fun. It's been so long since we've hung out with kids our age. Her sister shot her a look and she shut up. Righty finished. She means that we've been so busy. It's hard to get out much, you know. But you really should come. What did you say your name was? I'd forgotten my alias. Classic. But just before I gave myself away, I felt a hand touch down on my shoulder. This right here is the Great Forest Woods, no relation to Tiger. Gaz giggled. Sorry you ladies had to deal with him. He's real broody, isn't he? He plopped down between Lefty and me, nearly knocking her off the seat. Righty frowned, silent accusations hardening her features. No, I thought it was something else. Her gaze burned into me. Her eyes seemed bigger than before. A foreign shame entered my bloodstream, like when your mom catches you doing something wrong. For a second, that's exactly how I felt. Like a little kid, caught in a lie. I almost told her my real name, but her sister beat me to the punch. Anyway, it was really nice meeting you two. Hopefully we'll see you at the circus tomorrow. I watched them walk back up the beach, towards the main road. Gaz whistled a bit, then broke out in a fit of laughter. Usually the sound was mildly annoying, but the party was starting to thin, and the bonfire was being put out, and my friends' wild, high-pitched wails were more unnerving than anything else. If you told me the next Olympics were going to feature competitive shark wrestling, that would have been more believable than what my parents said at breakfast the next morning. Have you seen the circus up by the mall, Daryl? My mom chirped. Yeah, me and the boys were talking about it at work yesterday. I was thinking we could go see what it was about. As a family, you know. Admission is free. That's how they were. Even though I was sitting right there, slurping up cereal, they talked like I wasn't even in the room. I cleared my throat loudly, twice. You alright, Sean? I hope you're not getting sick. I'm fine, Mom. And since when are you and Dad into circuses? My real question was, since when are you and Dad into anything? They shrugged. Looks like fun. Plus a couple of lovely girls stopped by the other night to give us flyers. They said it'd be very educational, my mom said. I tried not to choke on cereal. I tried to tell myself that they'd probably just gone door to door. It wasn't like they'd sought out my house specifically. It wasn't even possible. Still, I couldn't shake the dread that crept into my fingertips and made the spoon too heavy to lift. Did you tell them anything? My dad scoffed. They're not cops, Sean. We just said we'd love to come see their show. Your mother even gave them one of her famous cupcakes. But, no buts, we're going to have a nice family evening and you're not getting out of it. The light in the kitchen seemed to die out. As if on cue, a strange flyer fluttered past the window. I watched it with a frown. At that point, I made up my mind that I was going to run away for real. And if I had to go to this thing, maybe I really could take advantage of it, even if they were just looking for someone to clean out the elephant pen. I turned back to my parents. Can I bring Gaz? They groaned loudly, which I took to mean yes. Through hours of hostage crisis level negotiation, it was agreed that Gaz and I would ride our bikes to the circus and meet my parents in the stands. Actually, his parents were going too, but they were more than happy to dump their son with us. Sometimes I felt kind of bad for him, to be honest, but he didn't seem to mind. On our way there, I told him about the two girls and got a similar story back from him. I was relieved. They'd gone door to door after all. I also told him my plan to skip town, which admittedly wasn't much of a plan. Really, I was just going to ask the ringmaster for a job after the show and hope for the best. Like I said, I was running on movie magic. Gaz told me my plan was stupid, and then immediately offered to help. His job was to distract my parents. He was a good friend. When we arrived, the parking lot was swarming with people. The entire town must have been there. Dead leaves and flies chocked the air. The smell of cotton candy and popcorn replaced any oxygen, making me dizzy. Above us, the big top loomed, red and white stripes tapering into a sharp point at the top, with dozens of cheap carnival games scattered about it. A few dirty-looking clowns patrolled the games, handing fluffy toys with big, gloved hands. I tried to picture myself as one of them, and felt sick. But still, I was determined. Gaz and I parked our bikes and walked up to the Ticketmaster. "Names," he said. "Midsummer Shyamalan," Gaz giggled. "And this is my buddy." But before he could invent a name for me, I interrupted him. "Josh Grant," I blurted out. I still don't know why I said it. I don't know why I played it safe. I just know that something deep inside me told me that I needed to be convincing. The Ticketmaster nodded at me, wrote my name on a shiny ticket, and passed it through the window. Then he narrowed his eyes at my friend. "Your real name?" Gaz glared at me, then said, very slowly, "Garrison Fields." We had this rule, see, that if your cover got blown, you had to give up your real name. It was supposed to be a punishment, like giving away a piece of yourself. I think about this rule a lot. I think about this moment a lot. "You're an asshole, you know that, right?" Gaz punched me in the arm as we walked into the tent. "That doesn't count. You have to earn your soda." I just nodded, trying to shake away the fog of carnival convictions. I met up with my parents, and the show quickly began. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the largest circus on earth. Our members are very pleased to see your faces, but be advised, there will be audience participation." A troupe of clowns danced into the ring, breaking out into cruel laughter and honking their tiny horns. I guess the gag was that they were prisoners or slaves or something, because of the comically large shackles attached to the legs. Whenever the ringmaster approached them, they all made a big show of screaming and cowering behind each other. At one point, the ringmaster pulled out a whip and pretended to hit them with it. I flinched at the sound of it snapping in the air, but the audience was eating it up. Even my parents were howling with laughter, slapping their thighs as they watched. I forced a chuckle from my lips, suddenly very self-conscious. Finally, the clowns retreated and were replaced by ballet dancers. I recognized the twins among them, leading the rest of the performers. Only, not everyone was in costume. In fact, most of the dancers were dressed like suburbanites or wearing business clothes. Ages ranged from ancient to elementary schoolers, all moving together. One older woman tripped and landed face first on the floor, where she was trampled by her teammates. Gaz was doubled over in hysterics beside me. I felt sick. I kept waiting for her to get up. She looked so frail, white and withered. One of the twins looked back at her, and she finally picked herself up. She rejoined the dancing, and I tried to laugh at the way her legs bent awkwardly backwards. By the halfway point, I was rethinking my plans. Short-skirted vendors prowled the stands, offering sugary snacks. "And what's your name, cutie?" Josh Grant." A tub of cotton candy was shoved into my lap. I placed a clump of it into my mouth and almost gagged. It was stale, sour. But when I turned to complain, the vendor had already moved on. I looked around. My parents were sharing a large tub of popcorn, except they weren't really eating it. No one was really eating. Hands dug into containers and brought the contents to laughing lips, only to have them fall right out of the mouth and onto the floor. I watched the Gaz grind cotton candy into his teeth, unable to stop giggling long enough to chew. My head was light. I looked back at my own container and gasped. The pink treat was gone, replaced by a thin layer of black mud and a pile of dead leaves. I touched my fingers to my lips and they came away black. Now I really did gag. "Dude, something's wrong." I shook Gaz by his shoulders. "I think we should ditch." But he just kept laughing, not even looking at me. "Gaz, come on, I'm being serious." Below us, a dozen or so men were eating fire, or trying to anyway. "Gaz!" I shoved him hard. His skull made a sharp thud on the wooden bench, but he just kept cackling like an idiot. Tears rolled down his face. His cheeks were red. White fingers clutched at his side, but he kept going, glued to the action. My parents were the same. Everyone was. I wanted to stand up and scream, "What's so funny?" But a cold fist formed in my stomach and kept me still, kept him quiet. The show continued. I have to be honest. It really was the largest circus on Earth. Thousands of people dragged themselves through various stunts and tricks, but it was as if they hadn't been trained on any of it. There were no costumes, no one was smiling, the magician wept as he cut a woman in half. No box or anything. "I'm sorry," he kept mouthing, and the smell of blood joined the tango of sugar and butter. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't watch, but a pair of clowns was guarding every exit. For some reason, I felt like I was being monitored. Trying to stop the wetness in my eyes, I dunked a fist into my tub of dead leaves and flung them at my mouth, allowing them to stick to my chin. I laughed at the horror in front of me until my cheeks hurt, rocked back and forth in my seat, tried to stop looking around. The smell of urine wafted up, and I noticed that the man in the seat below mine had peed himself, not that he seemed to mind. Finally, after hours, the ringmaster made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for audience participation." He held a box of shiny tickets. "When I call your ticket, come on down." The room went silent. I don't mean people stopped laughing, because they didn't. It was like their voices simply went quiet. "Holden Deer, Felicity Chambers, Gabby Days." I watched people suddenly jerk onto their feet, staggering towards the center stage with shaky, lurching steps. A parade of puppets. "David Brown, Daryl Connors, Linda Connors." My parents stood up. I couldn't help myself. I threw my body at them, holding onto their legs like a little kid, begging them not to go. A few clowns looked in our direction, but I ignored them. "Mom, Dad, please, don't you get it? Something's wrong with these people. We have to go home now." But they kicked me off with full strength. I flew back into Gaz, whose face was still contorted into silent laughter. "Garrison Fields." No, please, you can't," I screamed in his ear. For the smallest fraction of a second, I swear he looked at me. I'll never forget the pain in his eyes, the fear. And then he stumbled down towards the ring. Everyone did. "Josh Grant." I stood up. For a moment, the world worked in slow motion. I watched my family march through the ring. A girl, one of the twins, handed my dad a clown nose. Another one was showing my mother how to dance. Lazily, very stupidly, I noticed several pairs of twins doing the same to the rest of the crowd. Several pairs of the same twins. One handed Gaz a flaming baton. The ringmaster smiled up at me, then frowned as I stood, motionless. His eyes seemed too big, his features too sharp. "That's not my name!" I screeched at the top of my lungs. Then I ducked my head and ran through the stands, through the red and white curtains that felt coarse and dry against my skin, out into the parking lot, where I pounced on my bike and hurtled down the main road, screaming and crying and trying to remember how to breathe. I waited for my parents the rest of the night, uselessly of course. I waited to hear the sounds of cars starting up. I waited to hear familiar voices, all uselessly. Stacks of flyers were blown against my windows, face up. "One night only," I read. I screamed to break the silence. "Largest circus on earth," I read. The next morning, I pedaled back to the mall, not knowing what I was expecting. The place was deserted. No tent, no games, no ticket booth, just rows upon rows of parked cars and overturned bicycles. A thin layer of dead leaves blanketed the ground where the big top had been. I stood there for a long time, unable to comprehend the bitter irony of it all. I had planned to join the circus, but everyone else had instead. The realization slackened my knees. A wild, hysterical giggle burst from my lips. "No," I mumbled between peals of laughter. "No, no, no." I sank to the ground, shaking. "This isn't happening." I don't know how long I stayed there, staring at the spot where everyone in my town had been taken. I don't know how long I waited for some sign of life, and I don't know when the laughter turned to sobs.